welcome. Thank you so much for signing up to this session. Welcome to the Women's Climbing Symposium online series. We've got some things, lots and lots of things lined up. And tonight's one we are really excited about. Um, whilst I'm here, like just to start with, we'd really like to thank Adidas 510. They've sent me some socks. Thank you, Adidas. Catherine's got her t-shirt on, and yeah, we really hope that this series of talks from Katherine Schirrmacher will be really useful for everyone. I can't wait. So this is a series of talks. We've got 3 in this series. This is the first of 3. We'll have another one on the 4th of Feb, and there's another one on the 25th of Feb. So please come along to those as well. So just to introduce this talk and Katherine to you all. Katherine has been climbing for many years. She's coached hundreds of climbers. She's got a business called Love to Climb, which I just love that title, and the whole approach is having a really holistic approach to coaching climbing. And I think that's really important, especially at the moment when we actually might be able to take a bit of time out to focus on some other aspects other than just getting strong. So yeah, she's with us tonight to go through her approach to that, which should be absolutely fantastic. She's dabbled in all sorts of different types of climbing, bouldering, trad, all sorts. She's even had a go at sort of mountaineering and ice climbing, but she sacked that off when she got rescued by a helicopter. So so she's not going back to that aspect of the sport, but yeah, she's got a vast wealth of experience. So I'd like to welcome Katherine. I'm not going to chat on for too much longer. Katherine's going to take over. The last thing I'd like to say is please chat to each other in the chat box. You'll see at the bottom of your screen you've got chat and Q&A. If you chat to each other and talk about points in general on that chat box, and then when you've got some questions for Katherine, they'll go in the Q&A. When Katherine gets going, she's going to do a short introduction, then she's going to get straight into the questions that she's got to help you start analysing your climbing. And then there'll be a time when we have a look at all the questions you've put into the Q&A. So yeah, bear with us. This is the first time we've run anything like this online. So yeah, I hope this goes really well. It'll be really good. Over to you, Katherine. I wish there was a clap.
Thank you so much, Emma, and thank you. I mean, I'm just looking, 55 people. That is just amazing. Thanks so much for coming. So, yeah, this is a little bit weird for me because I'm literally staring at this screen. I've done loads of Zoom, but I haven't done anything where I can't see people's faces. But I really do want this to be interactive. So I'll go through the whole thing, and I'll just go through when there's opportunities for you to ask questions. So yeah, this session and the three of them all coming up, it's all about how I can support you to assess your own climbing. Now, it's not an easy process, but there is a process you can take. And I want to do it completely holistically. So, yeah, I've always looked at all of my coaching and all of my climbing completely holistically. And as a coach, I always know there's no one thing that will sort out your climbing. It's always a combination of things. And the things that I look at are technique, your physical, tactics, and psychological. And so it's always a combination of those things. And I think, you know, out there on the internet at the moment, it's all about training. And I mean, it's not necessarily easy to do. It's hard to do. It's physically hard to do, but it's easy to measure. And all the other stuff is really quite hard to measure. So I've just got this set of questions for you to get you thinking about your climbing. So just before we go, so I should also mention, so hopefully, when you signed up for this, you'll have got, in fact, you can't see it, can you? Because it's just too bright. A questionnaire with all the different things. And I think we've sent out, because tonight's thing, we're going to be looking at technique and physical. So you'll get another questionnaire if you come next time for the psychological and tactics. But this questionnaire is actually something that I've sent out to my clients, and I know I've seen some of you are here, so thank you for coming. So some of you might have already done these questions, but I've added in some extras as well for you, so just to get you thinking a bit more. So this, I am going to be sitting here speaking, but I'm going to be getting you to do things throughout this. So bear with me. The biggest thing that I want you to do here is to be open-minded. I also want you to be curious and to work really hard to not be judgmental. This is just like, okay, we're sat here, I don't know where you are, in your bedroom or your living room, whatever you're doing, away from the climbing wall. We've been away from climbing for so long now, it feels so distant, especially in the depths of winter. But in some ways that's quite nice, because it gives us a bit of time and distance away from our climbing to reflect. And I think that something that's difficult about climbing in the moment is that we can be judgmental. I certainly at times have beaten myself up if I've not done something. But where you really make a difference is where you can go, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what went on there. And to have that curiosity, but not, oh, I'm crap, I've fallen off, oh, not that, but just trying to look at what is. So the way it's going to work, I am going to ask you these questions. Before that, we're going to do a warm-up. I'm not going to have you jogging around the house. We're not doing that. This is a mental warm-up because I want to transport you back into your body and to climbing, so we can remember what climbing actually is. So we're going to have this kind of warm-up thing, and then we're going to go through the questions, and I will go through the technique questions first. Then there will be this opportunity for you to ask questions, and that's what Emma was just saying about putting your questions in this Q&A box. Then I'll go through the physical questions, and then again there'll be an opportunity for you to put your questions in the Q&A box. And then after that, I'm just going to ask you a couple of wider questions, and then really it's your opportunity to ask generally about, you know, whatever's come up or whatever comes to mind, or what can you do about this at home. So, right, that's the plan. Right, are you ready for the warm-up? So just a little sideline that I've been doing for myself personally this last year. Okay, brilliant. Kat says, let's go. Fantastic. Is I've been doing almost daily breath work. So I started off doing it because, particularly to manage stress and anxiety. And I was interested for myself, but I was also interested for climbing and for my work coaching. And I wanted to know how breathing could be useful for climbing. And it is something literally, I do it online every day, Monday to Friday. And it's a game changer for me. So anybody working with me, this topic's going to come up. So partly what I want to do now is use this to partly as a sort of, you know, just to get it, to sort of just relax and get us into the zone of thinking about climbing, but also to think of it as like a visualization, so we can think about our climbing. So you're going to bear with me here and just go with it. So what I'd like you to do is to close your eyes, and I'd like you to breathe. Now, obviously, you're all breathing because you're here, but what I'd like you to do is something called diaphragmatic breathing. So when we're asleep, it's most likely that's what we're doing. And when you're diaphragmatic breathing, your belly will rise and it will fall, and you'll breathe through your nose. It's the most efficient way to breathe. It's the most natural way to breathe, except what can happen, especially at the moment, is we end up breathing through our chest, especially when we're stressed. And there's times when we do that. But for now, what I'd like you to do is to do that. So put your hands on your tummy and close your eyes, and just feel your tummy rising and falling. Just see how that feels. Feel the sensation of your tummy rising and falling, the air coming out of your nose, in and out through the nose, and just be in your body. Just nothing more to do than just breathe. Okay, right, now from the tummy, I want you to take a really big breath and breathe all the way up through to the top to your chest, and then just let it go. So it's a big breath. And just let it go. Let's do one more of those. Fantastic. Okay, we're going to do one more thing now, and you're going to breathe in for 5 and out for 10. So again, through the diaphragm, and you're going to breathe out through the mouth. So you're going to breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, out through the mouth, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's do that once more. So big breath in through the diaphragm, in, 2, 3, 4, 5, out through the mouth, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Brilliant. So just with your eyes closed now, just go back to your normal breath. Just think one thing whilst you're just sitting there with your eyes closed. It's a bit of a sideline here, and there is a bigger reason for all this, is that doubling your exhale to your inhale. It massively activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which will relax you. And I just want you to get into that place of being relaxed. So with your eyes still closed, I want you to think about a really amazing climbing moment. Just let yourself go there. And I want you to think, who are you with? Where are you? Are you at the climbing wall? Are you at the crag? Are you in this country, or are you somewhere really nice and sunny? Really picture that place. And now have a think about remembering when you were climbing and when you were moving. Think about how the surface, whether that was indoors or outdoors, how that felt under your fingers. Just take yourself back there to that climbing moment. And think how it felt to lift your leg and put your foot on a foothold and just move over the rock. And what were the sensations? What was the weather like? Did you feel the sun? Were you getting bustled about by the wind? How did your body feel? Did you feel in control and strong, or did you maybe have to overcome something, which is why it was so memorable? Like, what was really going on there? That's brilliant. So let's just move on now. So just come back to your breath. What I want you to do now is to recall a climbing situation, and now maybe think about something as recent as possible. I know that's difficult. Some of you may be able to think back to December. Some of you may have home wars. I don't know, but some of you may have to go back to last summer. Some of you, maybe you've got to go all the way back to last March or last February. I know it's a really long time ago, but I want you to think about an occasion when you were climbing, when you got stuck, when you thought, oh, I can't do this move. You've got to step off the bouldering wall. You've got to say take. You've got to take the fall. Like, and it's an occasion where, you know, you hit a point where there was a reason why you couldn't carry on. And I particularly want you to think about it from a technique and physical point of view. So just let's go back to that again with your breathing. Just get back into your body. Is just have a think there about who you were with, where were you, take yourself back to that. And again, feel the handholds, feel the footholds, feel your body. Because I want you to think about, you know, we're trying to figure out where we're at with our climbing. It's just to take yourself back into your climbing. And a point where, you know, if we did all our climbs all the time, well, we probably wouldn't be, well, we might be here to talk about climbing, but, you know, we wouldn't be thinking about why we needed to improve our climbing, because we just do everything. So we want to recall the times when, hold on, you know, what was going on there? You know, take yourself back to that moment. Okay. Let's just take a really big breath in and a really big breath out. Just let it go. Okay, back into the room, back here, wherever you are. That's absolutely brilliant. You know, when I was thinking about this earlier, the incident that I recalled, so this is just to give you a bit of a flavour about what I'm trying to, how when you analyse your climbing, how you might think about it. So for me personally, I was climbing it was either last July or August, and I was in the Peak District, and I was with my friend Lucy, and I was trying to on-site this route. It was a sport climb, and for whatever reason, it was boiling hot, and I decided that I was going to do it in the full sun anyway, which was a really stupid idea, but I you know, we're talking about tactics next time. But I had noticed the weather was like that, but I chose to do the climbing anyway. So I went with that decision. Anyway, I got all the way to the last bolt, and I got this, like, that was it. I was fresh, and then my arms just went, and they were really, really pumped. And so, you know, when I think about that from, oh yeah, write that one down, you know, endurance, you know, I'd climbed really well up to that point. It was a 7A+. I was thinking, yeah, I'm on this. And then bam, my arms went. And I got that last clip in, and literally I clawed my way to the top of the crag, and I got my hand on the top of the crag. It was a square cut. It's the top. Like, if you get on that, you can have a picnic up there. Like, you just get on there and clip the belay and come down. But what happened also when I got there, when that pump came on, my brain, my thoughts started to be scattered. I lost my thinking, and basically I got really greedy. I got really greedy and just launched at the top, but I got into this crazily outstretched position, and I had the top of the crag, But then my foot, literally my left foot, started pawing at the rock. It was like, you know, just trying to find a foothold. I mean, it's just like my technique went to pieces. And I was trying. I remember Lucy saying, come on, come on. It was just like, no, I was out of there. And I fell off. And when I went then to the top of the crag, I realised that it wasn't just a footwork error. Really, it was just a really straightforward palm with that left hand. And yeah, that it wasn't actually that hard. But what is interesting when I reflect back on that is that my loss of clarity, my loss of thinking, and my loss of technique under pressure. So, you know, that is another thing to write down for me. But the positives, the things that were really good, is I remember not being worried about the fall. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes I do get worried about the fall. And it was a real moment of like, yes, that was really good. So, you know, that gets a tick. That's like a really good bit. But it's a way, you know, when I think back to the performance and I think what happened is these are all the things that happened. And so that's how I want you to reflect on your climbing. And it's not, you know, I've done loads of 7A pluses. It's not really about the grade. That's kind of irrelevant. What's relevant is about the climbing experience and the fact that last July, August, I hadn't done, I've done as much as, you know, I was climbing like once or twice a week. I've not been doing any training here. You know, I can tell you later what I have been doing. So I can't say I've been doing nothing, but I haven't been doing all the fingerboarding or whatever. So it was the accumulation of what came out of my climbing from last year, of whatever we were allowed to do. So I was reflecting on that performance of what happened there. And there were lots of elements there, from technique to physical to psychological and tactics. And that's how I want you to think. But I want you to think today about particularly the technique and the physical. So I think we're ready to start the questions. Right, I'm going to go for a screen share now. This worked earlier. So as I said, right, so before I do these questions, what I want you to think about, this is about your climbing. This is only about your climbing experience. So this is not about you comparing to anyone else. This is about you. So actually, wow, we're at 60 people right now. So I'm imagining we've got indoor climbers, we've got outdoor climbers, we've got trad climbers, boulderers, sport climbers. Maybe you do a combination of all of those things. But this is definitely about you. So don't compare to anyone else. So when I ask a question about footwork, when I ask a question about your ability to rest on a climb, or your ability to do steep climbing, or whatever the question is, I want you to think about it in the context of you and your experience of climbing. So if it's VSs, if it's 7A sport routes, if it's 6A sport routes, if it's you know, steep boulder problems inside, whatever you like to do it in relation to that. I also want you to think about it, and this is tricky, this is really tricky, to make this relatively recent. So what I don't want you to do is think about it now. What would happen tomorrow? I mean, first of all, tomorrow is an unknown. We've got no clue what would happen if we did go climbing tomorrow. I mean, we're not going to be able to go climbing tomorrow. Well, we can't in the UK anyway. So it's not about what would happen now. It's about something recent. So, you know, if I was to think about this for me, I would probably look at that summer period that I was climbing in, maybe July, August, September. I'm not thinking about whatever we could do in May and June, because I was just getting to grips with my climbing again there after that first lockdown. So this is about something semi-recent. If you're thinking about something from 10 years ago, that's not going to be too relevant either. And for me personally, that's really pointless comparing to 10 years ago, because that's like I was climbing at a different level. So I'm thinking as recent as possible. But if this means that you've got to go back to January, February, March last year, then maybe you have got to go back, but refer to a semi-recent time when you were climbing regularly. Don't try not to be hard with yourself. Try to come at a point of not being judgmental and to be at a point of curiosity. Okay, right. About you, relatively recent time when you were climbing regularly, non-judgmental, and try to be curious. So here we go. Right, we're going to try the screen share now. Okay, let's go for that. Okay, so these are the questions. So these are the technique questions. So I'm going to ask these questions, and there's 6 questions here, and you can score yourself. I want you to mark down your scores, and if you've got a question about these questions, put that in the Q&A box. So I'll do the questions, I'll explain the questions as best as possible, and but then I want you to have this opportunity to ask the questions. So the first one then, is that not doing anything? Okay, right, actually that isn't doing anything. Oh, okay, first question. So I am confident in my ability to see all available footholds. So 1, you get 1 point for nope. 2, I don't know. 3, sometimes. 4, yes, but not always under pressure. And 5, yes, in all circumstances. So for me, this is an easy question. If I think back to my example of me trying to do that sport climb, I get 4 for that, because I'm pretty confident, but under pressure, no. And maybe there's times in my climbing where I was better, but at the moment, I can't say that. It's, it's, for me, I would get 4 points for that. So what we're trying to say here is, do you spot all the footholds? Or do you see them all once you step back onto the ground if you're bouldering, or once you rest on the rope? But in that moment, do you see them? There's another point here is, do you actually trust them, or would you use them? But at the moment, this question is, do you see all the available footholds? So do your eyes capture the whole picture of what's there foothold wise? So just have a think there on all the different things, and maybe you could say, well, yes, I always see them at the climbing wall, but I tend to see them on limestone, but I don't see them on gritstone or sandstone, or maybe there's some rock types you do, and that might be a sometimes. And if you climb on one place a lot, the climbing wall, or you climb on one rock type a lot, and you're really familiar with that, you might answer a different question. So this is in the context of your climbing. Okay, next question. When I use a poor slopey foothold, I know exactly how to position my foot, leg and hips in order to fully trust the foothold. Now, I'm just going to say, I don't actually know how you spell slopey, and I did actually go on Google today, and I don't even know if it's with an E or not, but anyway, slopey footholds. So when I use a poor slopey foothold, I know exactly how to position my foot, leg, and hips in order to fully trust the foothold. So 1 is nope, 2 is I don't know, 3 sometimes, 4 mostly, and 5 yes, absolutely. So again, think back to where you climb, the context and the situation that you climb in. And you know, it might, you know, for me, I climb a lot on gritstone, so I'm very familiar with gritstone. I'm really, really confident. But when I go to a new rock type, there's a readjustment with my ability to use and trust those footholds. There's quite a lot in that foothold, because in that question, because it's partly about understanding friction, it's partly about confidence, it's partly about foot positioning and body positioning. There's quite a lot in there. So if you've got questions on that, store them up. Next question. I am able to choose from a variety of techniques to climb steep walls and angles. I think there's a question in the Q&A. Something just appeared on my screen, it lowered down from the top there. So I'm able to choose from a variety of techniques to climb steep walls and angles. So steep angles and walls, so steep climbing. So 1, I hate steep, not into it, don't do it. 2, sort of. 3, sometimes. 4, mostly. 5, yes, absolutely, you're on it. So it might be that you do know how to climb steep walls, but you have only 1 or 2 techniques that you rely on. So you come up against a bit of a block there because you don't know enough techniques. And what we are here, we're talking about techniques. Now that is separate potentially to the physical and the strength. And this is where later on we'll just look at how one impacts the other. But it may be there's a strength issue that affects your ability to do the technique. So you know the technique, but you can't do the technique because you're not strong enough. But just think of everything there, from flagging and twisting to jumping and dinos and all different ways that you can climb a steep rock. Bicycles and, you know, maybe, you know, me saying these words, it's like, I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, store up your questions. So next question. I vary my handhold grip or position in order to conserve energy or gain more strength. So this might be something you're thinking, what does that mean? In which case, put the question in there. But there are different handhold positions that you can use, but you can also hold on lightly and tightly, and you can vary that, and you can be really conscious of how you're doing that to conserve energy or pull really hard. So 1, never occurred to me, not thought about it. 2, think so. 3, sometimes. 4, yes, but not always under pressure. The classic there is that people hold on really tightly and, you know, don't think about the options. Or 5, yes, totally on it in all circumstances. I always think about that. Okay, next question. So moving dynamically, which is moving fast or launching for holds, is natural and automatic for me. So 1, I hate dynamic, not into it. 2, it's uncomfortable. So there's something going on there, but it doesn't feel natural to do it. sometimes. So maybe sometimes you throw for a hold, sometimes you slap, but sometimes you don't. And the circumstances that allow that or don't, maybe it's you do it close to the ground on boulder problems, but you don't like doing it on top moves. Or maybe you're happy to do it on top rope, but not on lead. Or maybe you're happy to do it when you're red pointing and you practice the route, but not on sighting. You know, what does that mean? Or mostly, or yes, definitely, I love it. All about dynamic climbing. You know, and this is an interesting one, again, in the context of your climbing. So if, for example, you're a trad climber, it's really unlikely you're doing all out dynos. I've done very little of that when I've been trad climbing. And it's also probably unlikely you're doing really steep climbing, because in this country, our trad doesn't really do steep. And again, when you're climbing on a slab, you know, you'll use different dynamic techniques to on steep climbing. So what are the techniques for moving dynamically on slabs? It's all different, but it's in the context of what you do. So next question. Right, so this is a bonus question. So for my existing clients who are on here, who've already had this questionnaire, this is another question for you and for everybody. So I spot rests and use them using a whole variety of techniques. So this is resting and recovering on a climb. And this is everything from a no hands bridge position or stemming position through to having a big nice jug and holding it and, you know, shaking out on a jug, through to knee bars, hip wedges, elbow wedges, head bars. You know, I've done a lot in terms of resting, like whatever it takes for you to get a rest. Now, I don't know if anybody on here is up to doing back hangs on routes. I've never had to do anything approaching a back hang. I don't think my toes could take it. So if that is the context of your climbing, great, but it's not the usual rest. So the rest that it's likely that you find and you spot on your climbs, and it's a little bit, it's similar that in a way to footholds. You know, do you see the rests, or do you just miss them? It's like, oh gosh, there was no hands rest there, but I didn't see it. You know, so that's it. That's it with the technique questions. Now let me just come back to the actual. Oh no, I don't need to come back, do I? Because I'm just here. Sorry, I'm just talking to the screen here. So those are the. In fact, I do need to come back. How do I do that? Oh my God.
Stop share.
Yeah, and stop share. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that helps. Right. Yeah, so that list of technique questions there is not definitive. It is not definitive. It's not covering every single technique question there is. I've got loads of other questions, but it's giving you an idea. So let's look in the chat now of what question, not in the chat, no, we're doing the Q&A. The Q&A, so if you've got a question on any of that, right, perhaps you could give yourself, so Ellie, oh hi Ellie, perhaps you could give yourself an indoor score and an outdoor score if you do both. Okay, that's a good question. And I think, so this comes back to, you know, what is this being scored against? So I think if you want to do that, that is absolutely, you could categorize your climbing. If what you do at the climbing wall is actually totally different to what you do outside, then treat it differently. And it might be, again, with all these questions, is I'm asking you to think of something you did relatively, you know, recently, if we can call it that. But you could do something for when you start again climbing, whenever that's going to be, But let's say we're all climbing in March, fingers crossed. So you could do this set of questions again for that, and see where you're at when you do start. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with giving yourself different scores for different things. Right, B, is there a good way to improve your grip technique? Is there a way to discover or practice these techniques? Yes, and I think this is absolutely an exploration. So when you are working, so when you can hold holds as lightly as possible, so you're just, it's almost an experiment to see what you can get away with. So for example, if you're doing a route, you might do the first part is really quite easy, and then you hit the crux. So when you do the start of the climb, you're holding on really lightly, and you're just sort of moving, flowing through the moves, and your hands are in this quite open position. They're almost dragging and draping over the hold. And then when you hit the crux, you bend your fingers over the finger hold and you pull. So with the holding on really lightly, I think one thing you need to do is almost just get 2 holds, and you could almost do this on your door frame, is you get 2 holds and maybe stand on the floor or on a stool and just see what happens, like how little grip do you actually need to hang on, like what can you get away with? And that's just experimentation. And when you learn to climb that like that, you can often really just use the friction of the rock, and your fingers will mold into the shape and almost twist in, and you're just finding that shape of the rock. So that is experimentation. But also it's an exercise, just climb and see what you do. What is your natural thing? And I know, maybe if you're not climbing at the moment, it's hard to know, but is to find out, well, I'm going to try and do this route, pick something really easy for you and just see what you do. Massive load of jugs. Do you hold on lightly, or do you think, hold on, massive jug and I'm gripping on like hell here? So find out. I think it's an exploration that. If you recommended 2 exercises for hip mobility, what would you do? Can we do that in physical? I've got a question on that. I'm going to come back to that. What can I do to train dynamic moves when I'm at home with no wall? I have a fingerboard and a pull-up bar, but I'm not that strong on either of these. Okay, so I think here it's really hard to train dynamic climbing on a fingerboard and a pull-up bar. I think but what you can think is much more widely. So dynamic climbing isn't just pulling with the arms. You can also do things where you are really pushing with the legs. So just this idea of just crouching down and jumping up as high as you can and really pushing with the legs is making you think about the effort, the physicality of jumping and moving. And what you can do at home is do that and just slap the wall. Just slap and see how high up. Maybe you've got to go outside and do that against the side of your house, because at the climbing wall, you get 2 holds, just hold and then just slap. But you could do that inside. The thing you can't do very well, and I wouldn't advocate doing it, is the latch onto a fingerboard. I mean, you're going to, don't know, but if there's something in the garden that you could dangle and you have to jump and you have to grab a bar or a tree or something, is because there's the 2 elements of the body pushing and jumping, and then there's the catch. And so there's the 2 elements to think about there. Gosh, I'm just looking at the time. It's quarter past 9. That clock's totally wrong. Moving dynamically doesn't come naturally for me, but I'm willing to try sometimes. What can I do to get out of the uncomfortable stage of being dynamic? Well, first of all, I would think there about forget boulder problems where the move is dynamic. So don't think this boulder problem is a dynamic boulder problem. That is, it's a jump, I've got to do it. It's start making up your own boulder problems. And you know, on big holds, because it's really it's uncomfortable grabbing a hold. That's almost, it's part of it is the being out of control and grabbing something at speed and when you're out of control. It's breaking it all down. I think you can do it on a slab to start off with, so you can you know, instead of bending your arm and grabbing, think about pushing with the legs on, again, on really, really big holds on a slab. And things you can do at home is on stairs, as you walk upstairs, is to maybe to pick 2 stairs or 1 step and just go move onto those stairs as quickly as you can, moving up. And the next foot, and push and go up. And it's that, rather than just going slowly as you go up the stairs, or whether you push and you go up. So you can do that in the garden and different things like that. I hope I've explained that enough. Let me, because time's ticking on. Let's just do the physical ones now. Okay, so physical. Why isn't that doing anything? Oh. Okay, right. I can bend, so same as last time. I can bend my arm and maintain a lock-off position to reach most holds I want to use. So sometimes, obviously, we'll move with technique and we'll twist and we'll have a straight arm and pull and move up that way. But sometimes we've just got to bend the arm and reach up. And this is generally what we're looking at here, is with your feet on. So when I say lock off there, you know, I'm not talking about taking your feet off. It's just when your feet are on, that it's one, that you can actually bend your arm, but 2, that it stays locked off. And there's different amounts of lock off. There's lock off there, and if you're really strong, you can lock off in different positions or in wide positions. So 1, no way, can't do it. 2, needs work. 3, sometimes. And again, is it angle related? Is it handhold related? Is it rock type related? Like, what's it related to? Mostly, and again, same kind of thing. Is it angle, or what? You know, what is it? Or absolutely. You know, when you get a hold, you can bend your arm and you can reach up, and it is no problem. So next one. When my feet cut loose, lose contact with the wall, I'm always able to get them back on. So if that generally is on a steep climb, so when your feet come off, you can always get them back on. So 1 is no way, 2 needs work, 3 sometimes, 4 mostly, 5 absolutely. So, you know, that's just, you've just got to think back to some climbs there that you've done that, you know, and maybe when you're fresh, you know, think about it when you're fresh, because when you're tired, that often, you know, that is maybe when you're tired, you can't do it, but you can do it when you're fresh. You know, think about some of those different things there. So when I get to a rest while climbing, I can usually recover my arms. And this is any kind, you know, this is not necessarily a no hands rest. This is a rest where you've got a really big jug, but you are on the wall still. It's a massive jug, and you can usually recover your arms. 1 is no way, 2 needs work, 3 is sometimes, 4 mostly, 5 absolutely. So this can be, maybe it's a technique thing, it is a crossover thing, is are you in the best body position? But it could also be a endurance thing. When I say that, you know, particularly endurance as opposed to power endurance, it's the ability to get your arms feeling good again. So next one, I am able to climb through a forearm pump. So lactic acid buildup and keep going. Now this is different to the last one. This is while you are on the climb and there is no rest and you've got to get through this section, is can you keep climbing while your arms are pumped? So, and this is more dealing with power endurance, and actually we're not going to have time to do a whole, I mean, it's maybe women's climbing, suppose we can have a whole other talk on this kind of thing, but just think about that pump in your arms. So 1, no way. 2, needs work. 3, sometimes. 4, pretty good. 5, absolutely. And you know, if you, is it sometimes when you've done a lot, you know, in those middle questions there, is it when you've done training, then you can do it, or is it angle related? I can do it on vertical, but when it gets slightly overhanging, maybe, but really steep, no way. Or is it just, I have no endurance, I can't do this? So have a think about that one. So this comes back to that previous question. My hip flexibility is good enough to be able to lift my foot up to most footholds I need. So this is on the climbs that you do. So this is not what you see people like getting their feet and wherever. It's on the climbs that you do. Has there been an occasion where, got to be honest, the foot's not going where I want it to go? Or is this not a problem for you? So 1, no way. 2, needs work. 3, sometimes. 4, pretty good. 5, absolutely. Right, I'm just looking at the time there. So I am confident my fingers will hang onto the holds I choose. This is the bonus question. So this is about finger strength, and again, this is about the climbs that you come across, and you'll know because you'll get holds, and it's like I can hang it, I can hang stuff. Maybe you can hang, but can you pull on them? Slightly different things, but you know, your fingers, you know, can hang on. So 1, no way. 2, needs work. 3, sometimes. 4, pretty good. Or 5, absolutely. So fingers is you know, a really, really important thing in climbing. So stop share. Okay. So that's all the questions. Right, let me look at the Q&A box. So if you recommended 2 exercises for improving hip mobility, what would you do? Okay, I think 2 things I would think about there. I would think about this, the frog position, the open hip position. So I think one thing you can do there, you can lie on your back, bring your knees to 90 degrees, make your knees 90 degrees. So you're lying there on your back on the floor, knees at 90 degrees, and try and bring them, just see where they get to. If you need to, you can push your hands down on them. You can do that on your front. That is also an option, but if your hip flexibility isn't so good, that can be an awful lot of pressure. So lying on your back. The other thing that is often forgotten with hip flexibility, which is so important, we have passive and active flexibility. So often loads of hip flexibility exercises are passive, in that you push yourself into a position, you get yourself into a position, and you just, you know, try and like hold this position, and usually either it's up against a wall, or you know, you're on the floor trying to push into it. The active, and what I think is really not talked about a lot, is how, if you were to stand up and you were to hold your leg out horizontally, how high can you hold it for? Can you hold it at all, or does it just drop down? How high does it go, and how long can you hold it there for? So you're thinking it's a very simple exercise, but with climbing width, we want to lift our foot up actively. If we got our hand and we lifted our foot up, we'd get a different result to doing it on its own. So I think you need to work on both of those things. So Chloe, I don't have a lot of arm strength and struggle to do a pull-up. Can you recommend a beginner's program or other ways to work on arm strength at home? So the big thing I would recommend there, this is my pull-up bar. It's one of these that goes onto the, well, it goes up there anyway. Base, it's not the pull-up bar, it's this. So a really heavy duty sling, stand in it, and stand both your feet in, get the assistance, because a lot of this isn't just the strength, it's the neural pathway, it's the brain knowing the movement. So just get the support, get your feet onto something and start going through that movement with extra support. That would be the big thing that I would add in there. And it's not about how many you can do without. It's if you can build up volume with support, because quite often with climbing, we do have our feet on. But what I would say about pull-ups, I've had a whole sort of world of experience with pull-ups, from having been able to do a lot of pull-ups. Well, actually, I've never been able to do lots, but I've been able to do a reasonable amount, through to when I had my daughter, I couldn't do a pull-up. And I went climbing after that, and the difference between being able to do no pull-ups and one pull-up is massive. So you don't need to be able to do 10, you know, to be able to do 1 or 2 is makes a huge difference. So get the support, get the volume up with the big heavy band, and go from there. What's the best way to push through forearm pump training? There's nowhere. I mean, you can add in the psychological, but what will hugely make a difference there is the training. And this is hard at the moment, but you can be creative. If you have a fingerboard, you can have your feet on a stool or something just underneath you, and you can recreate the hanging, the different, you know, that sort of high volume, low intensity stuff. You can do that on the fingerboard. And there are other exercises you can do that can work the power endurance. It's really tough and really hard going training this kind of thing on a fingerboard, but I would look up, I think for that, if you've got the crimped app, CRIMP app, they've got loads of exercises on there. It's to do with lattice, really lots of good exercises on there. Kaylee, sometimes when I need to match my hand and foot on the same hold, I can't quite get my foot up. Is there a flexibility strength exercise that could help with this? Yeah, and I think this is really hard. When the foothold is really close to your body, that is much harder than when the foothold is a really long way away. And, you know, being able to get make that close distance is really, really difficult. I think, you know, I can't sort of give the one exercise that's going to do that, but certainly, you know, really working through the full spectrum of flexibility, from the standing positions where you stand and you put your foot against the wall, through to seated positions and you have box splits. So and through to lying on your, on your back. I was just talking about that frog position. You can also do that where you stand up against the wall and you get your hips in that way, but you kind of need that resistance. So it's to think quite creatively about all the different types of flexibility, because it comes out in loads of different ways. So standing exercises and seated exercises. I can hang on small holds fairly easy, but when it comes, this is from Megan, when it comes to pulling down on them and engaging them, that's where I get stuck. How can I train the engagement section of the move, not on the wall? Well, I think what you're looking at there is one is the ability to hang, so that's your fingers. The other thing is your arm strength. So I would look at isolating out your arm strength. So what happens when you hang on a pull-up bar and you start pulling on that? Is that fine for you? Do you find that actually your arm strength is fine and it's not your and there's something specifically about the finger holds, or do you need to work on your arm strength? If you find that's okay, then I think getting on a fingerboard and thinking about the different points that you can engage. So there is that initial, you can do shoulder shrugs, so that's just that initial bit, and then you can also train the bit that, start with engage and just do the first bit and just isolate that bit, and then you can come in and maybe jump into a position, get the lock off position, do that, and then work on the last bit. So you're isolating all the different parts. So from that first pull through to the next bit and then the final bit. So look at all of those components. One on a fingerboard, one on a pull-up bar, and then also on a fingerboard. Can you recommend ways to learn to trust feet, particularly on slab vertical terrain? I think one thing there is getting it in a way. It's just practice is just like the worst answer I can give, isn't it? Because it's not very specific. I think you have to go out of your way. Wherever you are, say you're at the climbing wall and you have to look out for the poor foothold. So if you're at the climbing wall, a lot of the footholds are huge compared to outside. They're absolutely enormous. So you have to be quite disciplined to actually select just the poor ones. So something that's quite helpful is that if you can search those ones out, that you use jugs for hands, but you use smears and the poor holds for your feet. So you separate it out, so you isolate just the feet. To search them out, if you're outside, before you climb, and I regularly do this, is I will search out a little bit of rock low down where it's not even a climb, it's just a bit of rock. I'm not on the climb yet, I'm just on the rock and I'm just hanging off a break or something, and I'm just working with my feet on different bits of rock. And that is something I will go to when haven't been climbing, and I'm really lucky I live in Sheffield. So I'll be able to go on Gritstone. Sorry, people who can't. But I will go on bits of rock that aren't official boulder problems. They're not official climbs, and I will move about on the Gritstone to just trust. So take the colour-coded problems or the set problems out of it and search out the poor footholds. I often get, so Sarah, I often get stuck on low rockovers and I can't stand up. What kind of exercises can help other than squats? When you say low rockovers, do you mean, I'm not quite sure what you mean by a low rockover. My screen's changed there. So I think just generally with rockovers, again, it's isolating it. So one, is it that the rockover is a problem and it really is to do with legs, or can you be more dynamic? Is it possible to be more dynamic with your movement so you move quickly, so you're not stuck with the leg having to do so much of the work? Oh, so where your leg is really bent. Okay, so you're at the end of the movement, your leg's really, really bent. So that's really hard. And I would say if you get there, it's, can you have done the move with using more of a dynamic push? And if it gets stuck there, then yes, squats will help, but also it's the arm as well, you know, the pulling and the pushing down, the other aspect of it. Not quite sure I answered that question as well as I could have. Okay.
Good to me.
I've got one more question. To the group. Oh no, I didn't do the screen share. I've not done the scores, Emma.
Okay, that's cool. I'll just lurk here for a bit.
Okay, so I have run over. So share. So when I did this, I sent out 5 questions, and I know I've given you 6 questions on each topic. These scores are to do with 5 questions. So whether you want to pick the 5 you want or just add an extra point or an extra score for this, you can do, just to get the tally up. So, oh, why doesn't that do that? Okay, scores, right. So this is for one topic. So say that this is just for your technique score or your physical, because we're going to do a score for each of these 4 components, and you'll be able to see how they all balance out against each other. So it's not to read too much into this. What's as important as anything is how these fit in across the 4 different areas. But anyway, so if you got, for a topic, you got 0 to 5. So you know what you need to work on. You've got your answer. When you find something like that, it's an enormous opportunity. So it's really hard at first. You do need to persevere, but when you find it, just don't think, oh gosh, that's not good. You know, think, okay, this is where I can make a massive difference in your climbing. I've written down on the questionnaire, if you can find a friend to work on this with, it makes it a lot easier. 6 to 10. Okay, you've got an opportunity to make a big difference here. So this is where you need to spend a proportion of your week focusing on this element. 11 to 15, you've got a handle on it. It's there, but it needs to be more consistent. It's not as automatic as it could be, and you want to get it more ingrained. 16 to 20, fantastic. Right, well, it's almost there. It's not far off being your super strength. And this is where if you start to get 4s, certainly 5s, you know, do you sit on your laurels, or do you think, okay, this is good, I need to keep it there, or can you just drop that for a bit and work on another area? Yeah, and 21 to 25 is amazing, and that is a really, really good part of your climbing. So let's just get back to the thing. Yeah, so that's the end of the questions. Right. The other bit that I was going to we've totally gone over, haven't we? Is just also to throw up this thing about how your answers to one may impact the other area. So does the physical affect the technique? If you were stronger, if you were more flexible, would that open up more options with your technique? And that's where those crossover is quite important. We haven't got any more questions, have we?
I think that's all the questions. Thank you. That was absolutely brilliant. Like, I really do think that you know, looking at these things in a bit more detail gives you some clarity on what to work on, and it's just I don't know, it just gives you something you can form some goals around. You might have already known it, but it also gives you a bit of a backup as well. But also, when you get high score, it gives you a nice pat on the back.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's really important too, is to know what you're doing well. I mean, if anyone's got any fives, that's just so amazing to get fives on things. But most of the time, everything's going to come out less. There's always little improvements that can be made.
Definitely. Brill. Well, obviously we've got another 2 of these in the series. The next one covers which areas, Catherine? The next one on the
we're
4th of
looking
Feb.
at tactics and psychological. So
Right, brilliant. So be back on the 4th of Feb for Catherine's tactics and psychological workshops. I mean, I think it's great to be able to get some answers to some of people's questions as well. So it doesn't matter that you've run over it all. I mean, a few people might have had to leave, but honestly, that's really useful for people. It's also given me some ideas about other workshops we could do because of some of the questions that were coming through. There was a lot about dynamic climbing. There was some about flexibility. So I'm thinking I'll chat to Rebecca and Shauna. I'm thinking it's been really useful for us as well, this, because I think it'll give us some ideas about what to
and it
throw
made me
out there.
think, in a way, I wanted to get up and show, and I'm sat on the chair here.
Yeah.
So yeah, to be up and showing is easier than, you know, explaining.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you so much. Absolutely brilliant. Really, really pleased to have you on board doing all these sessions. I just want to tell everyone that on the 3rd of February, we've got Rebecca Williams, who's going to come and do a psychology workshop looking at managing your inner critic, which I think we're all guilty of at times. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one as well. That's on the 3rd of Feb. And like I said, Catherine's back on the 4th of Feb, and then there's another one, 25th, I think it is, 25th of Feb. Okay, great. Yeah, any questions in the meantime, or anything you would like us to feature as part of this sort of online series of talks that we're trying to get together, let us know, get in contact. But otherwise, thank you very much, Catherine, and we'll see you next time. Thanks to sponsors as well. Oh, can't forget 510. Adidas 510, thank you very much.
Yeah, if anybody does have any questions, as Rebecca, maybe she's just put that up there, then yeah, send them in.
Yeah, Rebecca's just put the email address in the chat there for everyone.
I'm
get in
also
touch.
on Instagram as well, Katherine. Plugging myself there, but you know, you can ask me questions.
Do it. That's all right. Lovely. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Catherine. Bye. Have a good evening.